Yeah. So, how are you doing, Paula?
You're not seeing my notes, are you?
Sorry.
You do?
I do. Yes, we can see your notes, Cedra, but I think if you go into presenter mode or presenting mode, it should have a way of not having the notes.
Go into which mode?
I think when you do, yeah, just from current slide or from beginning.
There it is. I thought I'd done that. Yeah, it is.
Perfect. Yeah. Sorry, Paula, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I apologize. I'm in my car, so it may sound a little
No,
difficult.
not a problem at all. I want to thank you for taking the time to come to this workshop today. I know advisors have very busy schedules and already have a full-time job you're dealing with anyway, so we are glad you could make it. I think there won't be anyone else coming at the moment, but if they ever come into the waiting room, we'll let them in. But since I know everyone's time is valuable, we're gonna go ahead and get started with the presentation. So I'll go ahead and pass it off to you, Deidre, to take the lead and we'll go from there.
Perfect. I appreciate the invitation to visit and share some information with you all. Maura asked me to review quickly the services that we offer, and then to also discuss some information regarding on-campus, student on-campus involvement and how that information could be communicated either through the resume or during an interview process. So I've got some information and a couple of resources that you should be able to use with the students. And so we are located in Sage Hall. We've got pretty much the second floor. The Career Center is a department that assists students with successfully transitioning from college student to the workplace. So all of our services are geared around helping them to enhance, develop, or prepare themselves for that transition. Obviously, we're doing the one-on-one interviews, one-on-one appointments, job fairs. We help with resume, cover letter, mock interviews, and we do presentations. But perhaps some resources and services that we offer that you may or may not be aware of. We offer students business cards. There's a template online. They can go in and complete the template, and probably depending on their backlog, they can pick them up that evening or the next day generally. We also offer we do professional headshots in our department. And that can be done through drop-ins. We don't have to have an appointment for students to do that. We also have a suit-up closet, which is in Crumley Hall. And if you're aware where the food pantry is, we're in that same location where the food pantry is. 2 years ago, we got a $4,000 grant from JCPenney's, and I had a ball going over to the store and spending their money to purchase brand new suits, both men and women. And those suits are available for renting. And so if a student has, an important engagement with an employer, hopefully an interview is that engagement, we've got some information, or we've got some clothing items that they could certainly use. We also have some items that have been donated, slightly used. So those items we will give to the student if they find something. And as an alum, the students are able to utilize our services for life. So that just might be a few items that you're not aware of. We've got a take flight, job shadowing. Our department facilitates or oversees on-campus student employment, handshake, we job search. So just a quick overview of what we do offer as far as services and support to the students. Now, we are a member of the Career Center, is a member of National Association of Colleges and Employers. that is the premier association whereby there are career center practitioners and employers nationally. And one of the initiatives or tasks that was given to the employers to discuss was NACE asked them, tell us what types of competencies or skills can the career centers work with or implement programming so that students feel like they are career ready, and not just feel like they are career ready, that in fact they are career ready. And basically that career readiness means that they have developed some competencies, or you can say some of these are transferable skills, some competencies, and they are able to demonstrate these competencies. And with that demonstration, pretty much they should be successful as they transition again into the workplace. And so those competencies, the career and self-development, and it's just that continuing to develop personal and professional learning, being able to identify what strengths and weaknesses are, and not just identify that, articulate that information to employers during an interview. And so as we talk about different associations and clubs that you guys are advising, they're needing not just to know what their strengths are, and they're developing and gaining many of these competencies in that involvement that they're having. They need to be able to articulate that. And so that comes into the communication. And it's just, pretty self-explanatory, being able to effectively have some exchange of ideas and information. Critical thinking is another core competency that has been identified. And that's just taking information and being able to logically analyze it and come to some type of solution. Equity and inclusion, the awareness, and just that being inclusive with programming and different types of events that are going on. Leadership, absolutely, your organizations, many of these, and even if they're not in a leadership role, they work with different committees, and they're working together. So recognizing, the strengths of a group and achieving those goals. Professionalism, everything should be targeted around professionalism. Good work habits, how they approach the interview process. We always tell students that you never know who's watching you. So you should always approach everything with some level of professionalism. Teamwork, building collaborative relationships, and then the technology is just understanding and utilizing different technologies and not being afraid to embrace and expand that knowledge. And so employers have identified, I believe there are 8 core competencies. And with these core competencies, that's what's deemed as career ready. Or you may have heard the terminology career readiness. That's really the buzzword that's going on now. Students need to be career ready. And so having these core competencies, generally a student that's graduating and moving into the workplace, they probably will be pretty successful at the onset. And as we look and read through these, you see how all of these competencies are being enhanced or developed with doing the work that you're doing with the students. Okay. So then the other question is, so how does the students communicate their leadership experience to employers? They have several different opportunities, obviously, to do so. That can be done through their resume, through interviewing, and obviously networking. And so I'm going to just very quickly touch on all three of these a little bit. So the resume, although it's a listing of information and accomplishments, the goal really is this piece of paper, you're asking employers to make a decision to take the next step, to pick up the phone or to email you and to get the interview. The resume opens the door. The interview pretty much solidifies whether or not you're getting it. And so that's the goal, is to get the interview. And so if you think about that, you also need to realize that it's your most important communication tool. That's the first thing that the employer is going to see. So it's got to be organized, it's got to be consistent, it's got to be accurate. There needs to be a focus on what the employers are looking for as far as the information that's listed on the resume. And tell students as far as how to focus what employers want. Read the job description. It tells you the ideal applicant or the requirements for this position. Those are the types of things that you need to express to those employers. And although the students may not have the exact same experience, they have other experience working through your organizations with transferable skills. And so they're needing to understand how to better identify that. And I've got some examples as we go further along in this presentation. And so on the resume, obviously we read from top to bottom. And so the most important information should be at the top. And then you start de-emphasizing the less important by putting it further on the page. When a recruiter will take seconds, 3 to 5 seconds, to glimpse at a resume. And so they're going to see what's at the top, entice them. And we entice them with suggesting students have a professional profile. It's also suggested that on the resume, you use bullets. When you start using a lot of paragraph formatted, it looks like a lot to read. And the recruiters are not going to spend that much time. A bullet shows me where each statement, a thought starts and it stops, and I can glimpse those really quickly. And we suggest students use the SOAR method. That's going to be my next slide. So hang on to that thought in just a minute. And when they're identifying bullets of accomplishments and listing their employment, if it's a past job, there should be an action verb in past tense. So they developed, they implemented, they collaborated, those types of things. The resume should not include the words I, me, or my. We know it's your resume. I, me, or my is appropriate on the cover letter. On the resume, we want to hear accomplishments. That's why we suggest using action verbs. And, a black font, 10 to 12 is good. Generally, a one-page resume should be sufficient. However, for a student, if they're, even with a student and certainly with the professional staff I've got here, if you have the experience, a 2-page resume is okay, limited to 2 pages, but you cannot. I've got over 20 years in the Career Center, and it's no way I feel comfortable by addressing my accomplishments in a 1-page resume. I can make it happen on a 2-page, so that's what I do. So for students with just general, couple of years of experience, a 1-page is sufficient. And you're listing your information in reverse chronological order. So in other words, your most recent and then you go in reverse order. And again, on the resume, you want to sell yourself, the resume in the interview, and you want to be as specific. And you can't assume that I can look at Maury as she's sitting there and I say, oh, I bet she's organized. She has to tell me that in the interview. I don't have the mental telepathy to know that. And so I talked about the SOAR method. We suggest students write their accomplishments in bullet format, as I mentioned, using an action verb. Paul is wanting to get in again, so I just let her in, sorry. Yeah, and so if you can identify an occurrence or an amount, that's good. But basically, your bullet should tell me what you've done using an action verb. And then after you've done that action, what was the result? What was the benefit? So why did that happen? And one example, oftentimes students will say on their resume, organized group meetings. Okay, give me a little bit more. Organized weekly group meetings for 35 members. So you did that. What was the result? Or why did that? Why? What was the result? Organized weekly meetings for 35 members, which provided everyone with up-to-date information regarding upcoming events and activities. That's very specific and a little bit more powerful. And I do have some other examples for different, let me see. If it's, yeah. So for instance, if it's a housing department, assistant head hall director as general caretaker to students in the residence hall. You might think that's enough. We can fix that and go a little further. And basically also when on the resume, this should be the format. Tell me where you worked and the location, what was the actual position title, and then what were the dates. And so that same assistant head hall director is a general caretaker and serve as live-in leader to over 200 students in the residence hall. That sounds much better. And then they think that's all that's there. You've done something else. So maintain a fair and reasonable discipline procedure by utilizing an educational approach to discipline appointments with students. So, you know, they just assist head hall director as general caretaker. And oh, that's all I've done. And as we talk more and more, tell me what else, what all does that involve? And so we get into them pulling up some more bullets here. Another one, if they're in a sorority, serve as the panelitic delegate on executive council of my sorority. First of all, we know my, I, me, or mine. And the fix for this, you could say, serve as an ambassador between sororities, executive council, and universities full panelitic council. Present philanthropic events to panelitic council to solicit support, and then build partnerships with 4 other organizations, which raise $1,500. And so that's how we're wanting the students to express their other extracurricular. A peer mentor, support a group of students through ongoing group and one-on-one meetings, attended all training meetings. And so provided weekly group or individual student members offering personal and professional support while encouraging and communicating tips for student success. Little bit more impactful, and it sounds very mature and professional. And so that's how we're wanting the students. Let's say they're a member of the Campus Christian Fellowship, and they've listed work on fundraising team for organization and attended twice weekly meetings. We can solicit local business for businesses for donations, design promotional materials using Adobe Illustrator and InDesign, wrote press releases which were picked up for publication in 4 local media outlets, and helped plan an auction which raised $2,000 for the organization. And again, students, we just have to keep asking, tell me everything you've done. Some of it may not be relevant or pertinent, but most of it, you know, they just start coming out. Oh, well, I did this, you know, well, did you guys have any activities or fundraising? Oh yeah, by the way. And so, you know, you just have to pull it out of them a little bit. Senior news reporter for the student newspaper, established mastery of AP style, improved interview and communication skills, learn how to work with group of people. And again, wrote 2 articles per deadline, 2 deadlines per week, reported on town courts and student government association, managed assignments for 2 intern news reporters, and contributed around 50 published and bylined articles per semester. There is a great resource. There are 2 great resources. Of course, the Career Center's website. And there is, once you get on the Career Center, there in the upper banner, there's a tab for resources. And so that's what I've listed here, are the different resources and examples that I shared with the different types of student orgs, and how the bullet points that came from this website of how to make your extracurriculars sound best on your resume. And this is the link. There are resume samples for those as well. So you can direct your students to that area. Now, regarding the interview process, the key to the whole successful part in the interview is how prepared the student is. And regardless of how many questions a recruiter will ask an applicant, they'll never ask 100, but if there were 100 questions, all of the questions really are trying to determine 3 things. Can the individual do the job? Will they do the job? And I already have a team. Will you fit into this team that I have? And so when you are speaking or advising your students, some things to help with that is, you know, you have to show a level of confidence, not just in eye contact, but your whole presence. If we're getting back more to a lot of in-person interviews now, and just how you walk into the room, you know, if you just, hi, I'm here. Where's the enthusiasm? I want to see some energy. And so confidence in your appearance, how you speak, how you greet, how you smile, the enthusiasm you show. If you're there on time, that reinforces your work ethic. Discussing or sharing information about how dedicated you are to student success and or to whatever they're applying for. They've got to speak to demonstrated times back to the core competencies of when they've worked as a team member. And obviously, if they're in some type of organization, that reinforces that. The whole thing about the interview and with employers, they want to know and see that you can fit in the team. Some of the other things they can train you on, but there has to be that team dynamic and that willingness and that enthusiasm that you're showing. And generally, most companies will have some type of training for you. So that's the big part of it. That's why we have in-person or Zoom interviews, because they want to see that interaction and feel that interaction. So that's a very important component of the whole interview process. They've got to see you fit in the team. And with anything regarding the job search process, whether it's an informational interview, you're spending some time to learn about a company, whether it's a job fair, whether it's the resume, whatever it is, the whole approach has to be professional. In your conversation, it has to be intentional. You have to be thoughtful of it. You have to remember, if you are in the job search process, you might have to change your message on your phone. So it's not the yo, I'm here, leave your message. So the employer, that's not professional to them. And especially if you're in this process. And obviously the social media has to be cleaned up, reinforced to them. It doesn't go away, because somebody else has saved it and shared it possibly. And if you delete it, it's still there. So be thoughtful and cognizant as to what's being put out there. Regarding the interview, well, let me back up. On the resume, the worst thing for the resume is to have a typo or misspell words. Their job posting said something about they're looking for someone with that's detailed oriented. And if you misspell words or any grammar, they may not go forward, because if they're hiring you for an accounting, it's pretty serious if you put that decimal in the wrong spot. You don't even have to be an accountant. You can look at your own checkbook, and if you think you have $100 and it's only $10, that's a problem. So you've got to be detailed oriented, whether it's an in-person or a virtual interview. Regarding professionalism, there's nothing different. You've got to look like you're successful, even at least from the waist up. I know many of us during COVID, and when we were working home, we had the warm-up pants, but we still but we looked professional from head up. One of the jokes in our department with one of the career counselor, she said, "Oh, don't ask me to turn around because the hair looks gorgeous in the front, but I've just got it pinned and pulled." And, so you have to give that professional look. The elevator pitch, that's, you should be able to answer the question, "Tell me about yourself," in 3 minutes or less. Yeah, 3 minutes or less. In the interview process, please encourage your students to be positive. Don't speak of any negative situations. "Oh, my past manager did not have a clue of what she was doing." That's not appropriate, so be positive. Encourage that they've done some research on the company, practice answering questions. We actually have in that resource section on our career services, we have a resource called Big Interview. And the students can go in, obviously 24/7, it's web-based, it's online, and practice. It allows mock interview practice, and they can get a video. You can share the video. You can use it to critique yourself and kind of see what your mannerisms are. It allows you to either, they've got pre-assigned questions already, or you can customize your mock interview. Perhaps if a student is having some problem with communicating or articulating their leadership experience, you can pull up questions by skill section. So leadership, communication. They can pull questions up by industry. So if in fact they are going to be an accountant, you can pull up information with questions for accountant. And so it's great, a great resource. And of course, we certainly offer mock interviews during one-on-one appointments with students if needed. Regarding answering questions, there's usually just very traditional questions, you know, tell me about yourself, and behavior-based questions. The premise behind the behavior-based question, your past behavior, is pretty indicative or indicative and or good examples of what you might do in the future. And those usually are questions, tell me about a time when, or if given this situation, how would you handle it? And, you know, oftentimes it's not a right or wrong answer. It's just they're wanting to hear how you will your critical thinking skills of, if I give you this situation, how will you come to a solution? What's your critical thinking skills behind that? And understanding that there are illegal questions. Most employers have been trained and they know not to ask the illegal questions because that could result in liability for their company. Some employers or recruiters may overstep the boundaries and just ask anyway, hoping that perhaps you don't realize it's an illegal question. And so students need to be aware of what some of those areas are and how to get themselves out of a situation if an illegal question is asked. I usually, on the slide, I usually have examples of where categories of where illegal questions may come. And one that's on my list, it says just car. And students like, what do you mean? What's an illegal question about a car? And so if perhaps they are a pharmaceutical salesperson that obviously will travel, the legal question is, do you have reliable transportation? That's the legal question. The illegal question is when they start asking, what make or model is your car and how many miles do you have on it? Is it reliable transportation? You know, and because I'm thinking, if you give me this job, I'm getting ready to go buy me a real new a car. So it will be reliable, but that's where the illegal questions come out. And if a student says, well, what should I say? Generally, I recommend that, you know, I'm sorry, I don't quite understand how this question relates to the job position. Can you give me a little bit more information? The recruiter will generally understand that you are a pretty savvy person and you understand that they've overstepped their limits. And the recruiter too will say, you know, you're right. So let's move on and back out from it. So they could, you know, they could get out of that. During an interview, the students, please encourage that there must be prepared questions. I generally suggest when a recruiter to students, when the recruiter asks, do you have questions? Yes, I do have some prepared questions. And I suggest that they have some kind of folder or something and just open it up and let them see that you have some questions. It reinforces that you thought about this before you got there. You're organized. You have some interest in this job. The recruiter, it's a two-way interview. So not only are they interviewing you to see if you're a good fit for the job, the applicant should also be asking questions to interview the company or the recruiter to see if this is a good fit for me. You know, they want a good fit for their team. Well, I need a good fit for me. And so it works both ways. And that's why we suggest that there be questions and be thoughtful questions. And the last thing would be many students may ask you to be a reference as they start their process, their job search process. And that's what they should be doing, getting your permission, or whoever they're going to list as a reference. They should be asking for the permission prior to listing anybody's information on an application. The worst thing on a resume is a typo. The worst thing for the interview is to be late. And the worst thing regarding references is not getting permission, because just think how the applicant's reputation can be tarnished if someone calls me and say, Miss Leslie, Maury Brown listed you as a reference. And I say, Maury who? That does nothing for the credibility, you know, or it sounds like I'm not aware that this was coming at me. And that's what students, you know, they forget that part. Oh, let me write so-and-so down for a reference. And you have to get the permission. And my graduate assistant now went on an interview Friday in Houston. And before she left, she asked me, would I be a reference? And then earlier this week, Monday, I guess Tuesday, they contacted her and said they'd like to move to the next step. You know, and that would be following up on her references. And so she sits right outside my office. I said, well, send me and whoever else that you have listed, send me a little information about what the job is so that I can best support you and highlight your skills as it would relate to that position. So share something, the job posting, a little bit about the company, just some notes from it, but I need to know something, because not only should she be prepared, that's something important to me. I like to be prepared. I don't like to be caught off guard like that. So do encourage that. And so the whole thing about the theme of this was obviously communicating their leadership information, but also being career ready, understanding what the core competencies are and how you can gain and achieve some of those goals. And the first thing on my list is exactly what you all are, the advisors. The students need to join organizations. And all of those 8 core competencies, they will have some development on all 8 competencies in all of your organizations. I don't care what group it is, you all are communicating, you're doing teamwork, you're forcing them to think about solutions. They're using some technology. They should be able to identify what strengths and what skills they're using in those environments. Hopefully you're holding them accountable to being professional. So all 8 of those competencies, they're enhancing that through the involvement with your organizations. We do have a job shadowing program, and that information is on our website. do encourage your students to attend any career-related events or academic conferences or any opportunities to network. I know you guys have heard often that it's not what you know, it's who you know. And there's some truth behind that. I've been in probably most of my jobs because somebody has referred me or told me about it and I followed up. And, you know, that network doesn't have to be executive. It could be your stylist or wherever you get your hair cut. You know, they're talking, they've heard other people come in. So encourage your students to be vocal and to communicate. Obviously, we've got our jobs, internships, and in full and part-time jobs on Handshake. Community and volunteer work is another way of enhancing LinkedIn profiles. That this is the big interview that I spoke about. They can even on big interview, there's opportunity for do some resume writing on there. We've got sample resumes by major on our website. They could do a study abroad. I mean, there's many ways of enhancing those transferable skills, as well as, you know, their major related internship and information and that type of thing. So I think that is summarizes the presentation for today. We are located in Sage Hall 202. The career coaches are, you can schedule an appointment with them on Navigate. We do offer drop-in hours, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays for 10 to 12, and Tuesdays and Thursdays are 1 to 3. And so I guess I'll open this up to see if you guys have any questions. I see there was something in the chat. Mari, anything there that I could address?
If there were any questions in the chat, Paula, if there are any questions or anything you'd like to ask?
I do have a question. Is how would I go about scheduling someone to do this or similar presentation in the classroom?
There is a form online, and if you go under faculty, it'll there's a form, and or you can fill that out, and once you submit that, it comes directly to the Career Center's office, and then it's dispersed to whatever area. Or if it's if it's for a specific college, you could fill out the form, or you could always send me your request, and I'll figure out how to direct it, who to direct it. What type of presentation were you considering?
Well, I would love for my students to hear about everything the Career Center offers, but also just what you did here on the overview of preparing for a job, internships and resume building. Just, you gave so many good pieces of information, and I do include some of these in one of my lectures, but
What college are you in?
In Health and Human Services, public service.
HPS?
Yes.
Okay. So Janice Lader, Lader, is the career coach for that college. Our career coaches are assigned by colleges.
Okay.
And she's the career coach. And just FYI, we are in the process of hiring 19 new career coaches. And HPS will end up with 3 career coaches. So we're in that process. And that was Dr. Smotrick's state of the university. He commented or announced that we're going to be focused on student career development and readiness. And with that, he allotted or more resources in the form of money for new
Wow.
career coaches. So we're in the process as we speak now of interviewing. And we've interviewed someone for HPS already.
That's
But
fantastic. I just don't think students are aware of how many amazing resources are available to them. And I want to
Absolutely.
spread the word. People pay for this kind of
yeah,
assistance.
absolutely. And now Janice is out with the family emergency. I don't know how soon or what your dates are, but you can certainly, Janice later, and I'm Deidre Leslie, you can copy me if you're sending her an email or if you're going to fill out the form. You can copy me, and if you think just this presentation was appropriate, then that's fine. Or if you got more, if you just want it on resume, we can spend the time based on what your needs are, what you want discussed in your.
Okay. And I'm certainly not in a hurry. We
Okay.
can schedule it for some time this semester if that's possible. And
Yeah.
What would I call this presentation?
I called it communicating your leadership style or your leadership experience. But you can just tell her what you want.
Okay.
You want information about services offered, quick tips on resume development and interviewing.
Okay.
And because her presentation might be titled something different, but if you make note to her that it was this presentation, we share and share alike. So I'll just send her this presentation if this is sufficient for you.
Okay, fantastic. I will email her a bit later today.
Yeah. Anything else?
No, but I've really appreciated it.
Oh, great. I'm glad you find it helpful. Mari, anything else I can